Hello, and welcome to our federally funded grant project presentation at the 2021 NASP virtual conference. Our project and presentation is entitled Collaborative University Preparation in School Psychology and Exceptional Student Education. My name is Oliver Edwards. I am the co-PI on the grant, and I'm also a professor and chair of the Department of Counselor Education and School Psychology at the University of Central Florida. I will ask my colleagues to introduce themselves at this point.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here. My name is Mary Little. I'm a professor in exceptional student education, also at the University of Central Florida, and thrilled to be a project director on this very innovative and exciting grant.
Hi, I'm Dr. Dina Slanda, and I am also faculty within the Exceptional Student Education Department at the University of Central Florida. And I am also honored to serve as the project coordinator for this particular project.
Today, we are going to share first some of the objectives of our presentation, and those include describing our grant project, $1.25 million grant project here at UCF. We are going to identify, analyze, and evaluate many of the components of this project, which are relevant to NASP, National Association of School Psychology standards, and Council for Exceptional Children advanced competencies as well. We will outline the collaborative project among school psychologists and ESE, or exceptional student educators, as they work with students who have high intensity needs. We'll identify some data-based individualization strategies to assist in psychoeducational and psychosocial needs of our students, and then explore some evaluation components and outcomes of the project. As many of you may be aware, school psychologists and exceptional educators who work in the field-based setting, in the school setting, sometimes work in silos. Our fields are parallel, but on many occasions, and historically, we have not worked together or collaboratively as much as we should. We know that integrated service delivery models are particularly important in advancing positive outcomes for students in our schools. So in our project, we believe that preparing school psychology students and exceptional student education teachers together collaboratively will help them work collaboratively in the school setting. Both disciplines, both professions are well positioned to provide direct services, indirect services, intervention, prevention, support to students who have high intensity needs. And so this project was designed in order to improve the outcomes of children in the pre-K through 12 setting, particularly those who are participating in MTSS. Most of you know about MTSS, multi-tier systems of support. And so we want to provide, we know that's an all education model, and so we want to collaborate when we're providing these services. Now, an integrated service delivery model is structured to provide students with diverse needs the important intervention strategies and prevention strategies that they need. By building on the knowledge of teachers and school psychologists, we sort of improve or increase their ability to offer supports to the students who have high intensity needs geometrically. And so this is a critical component of delivery and evaluation of ESE services.
As Dr. Edwards was just describing, we are honored to have been awarded a grant from the Office of Special Education Programs. It's a personal preparation grant, Project Bridges 2.0. And as Dr. Edwards mentioned, the really foundation is to synergistically collaborate across professions. And so we are just so honored. Project Bridges 1.0 focused on academics and how we could more include all students within the general education programs. But as we found, as Dr. Edwards also mentioned, given the needs of the psychosocial needs and the social emotional learning, we as a team wanted to focus our professional learning and development at the advanced certification level for special education teachers and school psychologists to collaboratively synergize to work and learn the knowledge, skills, and competencies to work with students with high intensity needs in framework, but really focused on the social emotional needs for our students within the pre-K settings across our local Florida area. Really, the project goals for Project Bridges, ultimately, given that it's a personal preparation program, is that we recruit high quality graduate students in the school psychology program and in the special education program, focused on certainly to address the shortages in the nation, but as you look to the second project goal is to prepare these cohort teams of educators using the current standards from both organizations, Council for Exceptional Children and ACT, to learn collaboratively what the standards are and to apply the standards in clinical experiences and model demonstration sites, which we talk about in a little bit. But then also critically important is to retain these educators as leaders through mentorship and continuous supports. As mentioned, this model of professional learning then is a synergistic collaboration. This is the courses that we'll talk about in just a little bit fit into, it's a graduate certificate as at the UCF structure. The title of the 4-course graduate certificate is a collaborative intervention specialist. In special education, as I mentioned, these courses that we'll talk about in a minute are part of a graduate certificate that then are part of our advanced teaching certification at the graduate level, or the Masters of Education in Special Education for our special educators. Dr. Edwards, what about with the EDS students, please?
So we have a very comprehensive EDS model here at the University of Central Florida. But again, in that model, we historically did not collaborate with our special educators, or NASP terminology, exceptional student educators. And I was delighted when my colleague, Dr. Mary Little, came to me and said, why don't we apply for this grant project? Because bringing the two groups together will improve the knowledge base, the skill set of both professionals, and allow them to excel in providing the support that student with high intensity needs and need or require. And this model for professional learning is part of the process of preparing our students for that outcome.
Exactly. The next couple slides, we'll talk a little bit specifically about the courses and the performance tasks that we collaboratively developed, not only with the us that you see here, but even more importantly, I'm going to say with our stakeholders that are on our advisory committee. It's critically important that we listen to our colleagues in the schools, the school psychologists, the special education teachers, the administrators from our local school districts, as well as other faculty members, as we're co-constructing what the courses should be either enhanced or created to assure that our students are collaboratively meeting the standards as we've described, as well as the vision of this project. And so within this 4-course graduate certificate, then there's 2 special education courses and 2 from the school psychology program that our cohort of students, special educators and school psychologists, take together. And so one of the courses is instructional intervention strategies. It's special education, but taking a look at then what do we know, what are the assessments, and what are the evidence-based practices, the high leverage practices that we can utilize to address some of the needs. I know, Dr. Slanda, you teach one of the beginning classes, 6218. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So 6218, we really focus on the multi-tier system for supports framework. We talk about it both at the classroom level, but then also at the school-wide level, and how do we improve those systems to better meet the needs of our students with high intensity needs. Additionally, our scholars focus on data-based individualization and what that process looks like in order to implement intervention for our students.
Right.
And the key here is that our students are learning together and learning from each other. So all students in the graduate certificate take these 4 courses, including the school psychology course, building and improving relationships and social emotional intelligence. This is essentially a social emotional learning course based on the Castle model collaborative for academic and social emotional learning. We also have an advanced database decision-making course that highlights the use of progress monitoring and collecting data, applying data to identify whether teaching, prevention, and intervention are being used and whether those strategies are effective for our scholars.
Exactly. And as we mentioned at the outset, we are very clearly adhering to the standards from both organizations. First, for content knowledge that are demonstrated within the course structures, whether the course structures are offered web-based or face-to-face or hybrid. Each of the courses also includes performance tasks. How do we apply this knowledge and skills within our school settings today? And these settings, honestly, these performance tasks, we had a lot of feedback, a subcommittee from our advisory committee to assure that we were not only meeting the standards and the policies within our state of Florida, but that these were tasks that school psychologists and teachers were a part of. And so, for example, in 661, individualized education plan, so that it's not just something we check off, we just attend, or that we get a parent to sign, that we really collaboratively develop specially designed instructions for students with an IEP. And then the second part is to take a look at lesson plans, but not just to develop one, more importantly, to enhance. I know there's so many sources for vetted lesson plans. So it is to take a look at an aligned, appropriate lesson plan, and then how do we enhance it collaboratively to include the principles of universal design for learning, to include high leverage practices, to include other evidence-based practices and curriculum assessments, so that we are building an incredibly individualized, specially designed instruction collaboratively. And so part of that, they learned some of the information in 6218. Dr. Slaney, you want to talk a little bit about that assignment?
Sure. So in 6218, again, when we're thinking about a multi-tier system of supports and how we use a taxonomy for intervention, when we're intensifying intervention as the students go through those flexible tiers, what that needs to look like. So our students, with this being an application-based assignment, identify a student within the special education teacher's classroom. They collaboratively implement interventions. First, they assess. They determine what's the problem, what are the issues that the student is experiencing, where we can provide intervention, and then they collaborate to provide those interventions to ensure that the interventions are evidence-based. So they do a literature review, they do a data analysis as they progress monitor for the students to ensure that the student is responding. How are they responding to the interventions? Do we need to tweak them? Do we need to enhance them? Do we need to go back to the drawing board and find something new? So really it is a collaborative where they're working in teams of 4 or 5 together to improve outcomes for a student that they've identified.
And with respect to SBS 5605, the students are learning concepts and content within that classroom setting with regard to social emotional learning, multiple strategies, how they can be implemented in practica, how they can be implemented in internship. And because the students are taking the courses together with the ESE teachers, or ESE teachers to be pre-professional ESE teachers, although many of them actually teaching concurrently, many of these strategies are implemented simultaneously in the college or university classroom setting, and also implemented in the pre-K through 12 setting as well. So they have presentations and research papers in 5605. Also, they develop an intervention and use progress monitoring to determine whether that intervention would be effective. Again, there's content knowledge, concepts taught in the classroom collaboratively, but they are also implemented in the actual classroom collaboratively as well.
Part of then all of this information and practicing and working in these performance tasks, ultimately we want to develop model demonstration sites where people, we can either through electronic means, video means, through part of our web courses, we have opportunities for others to see these practices in action, if you will. And so it's taking a look at the research from the courses to actually then utilizing the practices within real classrooms with real kids in real schools. And so one of the resources that we're going to be using, the National Center for Intensive Intervention has done research related to applying the principles and the resources of intensive interventions. And so as we're through, since we're in year 2, we're going to be moving forward to take a look at this framework for identifying model demonstration sites for intensive interventions collaboratively. In order to continue this work, there's scholar supports in place, obviously collaborative advisement sessions, different performance-based experiences. They do travel as a cohort model. They have opportunities to learn from each other in a broader community. There is travel support there. Of course, we're all Zooming right now, but just the opportunities to visit and learn with each other. And we have very informal conversations as well. Those coffee and conversations times that we set up either before a class or Zoom sessions, we all know that when we're implementing, that's when different kinds of questions happen and we need different kinds of supports. And so we offer all kinds of scholar supports to assure that high fidelity for all the implementation occurs. And so our next section, we'd like to talk a little bit about some of our preliminary results. And so I think Dr. Edwards, talk a little bit about your program.
Indeed. So we are building a community of scholars who are school psychologists and exceptional educators as well. We're building this learning community at the university level so that it can generalize to the pre-K through 12 setting. 50% of our scholars, school psychology students in the program, the certificate program, 50% are teachers, 19% are currently working in schools, in Title I schools, in fact, and roughly 19% are from underrepresented groups.
We collect similar data for students. This is part of the requirements to report back to OSEP, but we're thrilled to be able to say that 87% are working in special education, with 60% of them working in Title I schools. We also clearly recruit. We want a very diverse mix. And so more than a third of our current scholars are from underrepresented groups as well. And so we'll continue to track these numbers as we also take a look at multiple other indices related to knowledge, skills, and perceptions. And so, Dina?
Yeah, so a lot of our, we do a lot of program evaluation. We check to see, competencies as they enter the program, and then check to see their competencies as they exit the program. However, today we're going to focus on their evaluation and outcomes as it relates to collaboration. Since collaboration is such an important part of this grant and such an important part of this program, we want to know if our scholars are benefiting from that collaboration. As Dr. Edwards had mentioned before, our students are working in silos often. Once they get into the school system, they don't know what school psychology, if you're a special ed teacher, you may not be as familiar with what the school psychologist does or what their background is, and vice versa, even though you're working together all the time. So collaboration often becomes more of a communication than collaboration. So we developed a survey with the assistance of our external evaluator to really measure what collaboration looks like. So some of the questions that we had, we're going to go ahead and share with you today. First, when we asked our students, our scholars across, both school psychologists and special education teachers, if they felt that their capacity to collaborate to enhance opportunities for students with high intensity needs. So on a 5-point Likert scale, they had responded that they felt that they had, their capacity had increased considerably. Some had said 37% said that they received maximum capacity to collaborate. And about 13% said that the program impacted them moderately. What was great to see is that none of them responded some or none. Same thing when it was improved capacity to collaborate. So with other stakeholders, we don't just focus on the collaboration between our school psychologists and our special education teachers, but we really need to be thinking about collaboration with the entire student study team. So with administrators, with the general education teacher, with related service personnel, with guidance counselors, social workers. There's really a multitude of stakeholders that are leading to high impact for our students with disabilities or prior to receiving a label of disabilities. So they did feel that there was considerable improvement in this area as well as maximum improvement. 25% reported that they felt that they had improved their capacity to the maximum level, 62% to a considerable level, and 13% to a moderate level. Another focus that we had within our survey was to check and see how they felt that their capacity to use culturally responsive practices to facilitate the collaboration with individuals from diverse backgrounds. So those individuals could be families, those individuals could be others and colleagues, peers, the students, whoever it is from a diverse background. Do they feel that it's been improved? And our students said they had received 62%. Felt that they had maximized their capacity to work within culturally responsive practices. Considerable was 25% and some 13%. Additionally, when we're thinking about interagency collaboration and planning the interventions, and this question was focused on actually planning interventions, they felt that 37% felt that they had received maximum capacity. 37% as well for considerable. And then there was a mix between moderate and some. When asked if they had, in collaboration with others, demonstrated skills to use assessment and data collection. So again, a lot of our focus within the courses was on data collection and assessment, progress monitoring, and then as well as implementation. So, but just for assessment and data collection, 75% of them felt confident in reporting that they had an improved capacity within these skill sets, and 25% with moderate. Additionally, when it came to designing, implementing services and programs for students, 50% felt that they had improved their capacity to a maximum level, 37% to a considerable level, and 13% to a some level. When asked more directly about the courses themselves, so the 4 courses that Drs. Little and Dr. Edwards had previously described, they felt that the courses themselves had improved their collaboration skills. Most of them responding, over the majority of them responding at a maximum level, 50%, as well as 37% had reported that they felt that the courses had improved their collaboration skills to a considerable amount, and 13% to a some amount. And as Dr. Little had described before, our scholars move in a cohort model. So we wanted to know how that cohort had impacted their collaboration skills, especially because their cohorts used to be special education had one cohort and our school psychologists had their own cohort, and now they were together. Now they had one larger cohort model, and 50% of them felt that the cohort experience had increased their collaboration skills to a maximum level, 25% for each moderate and considerable. The performance tasks that were previously described were also reported as having improved their collaboration skills, because again, they're working together, identifying students that may need assistance, working on IEPs, working on lesson plans, and enhancing lesson plans. So they felt that the performance tasks had led to a maximum, or 62% of them felt that it had improved their collaboration skills to a maximum level. 25% felt that it had improved their collaboration skills to a moderate level, and 13% felt that it was a considerable amount. And then our scholars are also provided with extra resources, whether these may be books that are provided to them. These could be, opportunities for webinars or other items that are provided to them, or resources that are even provided within each of the 4 courses. And they felt that the resources, 50% reported that they felt that the resources had improved their collaboration skills to a maximum level, 37% to a considerable level, and again, a moderate level of 13%. So we are excited to have shared that data with you. And I'm going to turn to Dr. Edwards to kind of debrief on that data.
Again, we thank you for attending our session, and you recognize that it is pretty intensive project that we have here at UCF. And this year with COVID-19, I guess COVID-20 and 21 as well, our session is somewhat limited in time. However, if you want additional information with respect to this federally funded grant project, we are certainly open to you making contact with any of us, and you see our contact information on the slide in front of you.
Thank you so much for joining us today.